a lot of you have asked for this thing, that's why we are doing it. This is not a certification or anything. I'm going to tell a different HTML, CSS, JavaScript and React.js interview questions which are according to my experience. See, I have 16 years in the IT field, and before becoming a full-time trainer, I was working in various companies. And in fact, in my last company, I was the person who was taking the most number of interviews. So I've taken more than 1,000 interviews in my career. So it is like that I know what is been taken. But okay, one thing I have to tell, that I have not worked a lot in a totally product based company in which DS and algos are there. So there will be no DS and algos and all. This is a bit for startups and service based company. See, in those companies, the way of interviewing is totally different, and that you can learn from some big company like Scalar and all. So that is that, because for them, you if you want to prepare, it takes more than a year to prepare for such companies, because for them there is a DS and algo round, there is a although I have given one DS and algo round for Uber, so I know that DS and algo rounds are there. Then your machine round is there, where they give a very complicated problem to solve. So all those things are there. So those things are there. Although I know some of the questions which they ask, but I'm not the perfect expert to tell that thing, because for I help people to get a web app developer job in startups or in a service companies and all. So that is the motto of TWD. Okay, so we don't go for those big product based companies and all. Okay, so that is there, and we'll start. And with this my series, okay, hello on. And as there will be no certifications and all for this, okay, we're just seeing the interview questions and all. Okay, okay. Okay. So let me share my screen and all. So even I am going to, so we'll start with HTML first. Start with HTML first, maybe. Okay. So I have this time I will do it in online code editor known as JSfiddle. I generally do it in online code editors like JSBin, but this time let us do it in JSfiddle. Okay. So this is like this. Uh, so this is not again a please. This is not again a career solving thing. So how should I approach company? I'm not a student. Please, this is not a career related thing. We are going to learn about the question. So those things, if you want some career related thing, please do ask me on LinkedIn, and I will be happy to answer. So you're not a student, then I always please do attend my workshop, 3 hour workshop on Saturdays, in which we always tell how to you approach if you are a homemaker, if you are someone, because I have students who are homemaker, I have people who are mechanical engineers, I have people who are electrical engineers and all those things. So everything, it depends upon who you are. I don't even know who you are, because I can guide you based on that, who you are, what is the problem, were you preparing for UPSC that you have such a big gap. So all those things are there, because I have students, all of the people are like that. UPSC students are there, housewives are there, electrical engineers are there, mechanical engineers are there, electronic engineers are there, everybody is there for my students. Okay, so that is there, so that we can talk later on. So let us first understand the HTML interview questions. So in the HTML interview questions, they can ask means like a very common HTML interview question is like what is HTML? Okay, what is HTML? So HTML, that you find out what is HTML. HTML is hypertext. Okay, so what is HTML? The first thing. Okay, I have also commented it out so that it is not giving this. Well, HTML stands for hypertext markup language, and I'm not going to write the answer and all. I'm just going to tell it. It stands for hypertext markup language, and it is used to for the skeleton of any website. So for skeleton of any website, three things are required. One is HTML, one is CSS. CSS is for styling, and JavaScript is to give the events and all, handles all those events and all. So this is the HTML. Okay, so please don't ask about this career related question. But please, these are all career related questions. These are not means you go through our series in React and all. We do have this React certification. Do projects. That's the only way to do it. Okay, so learn from different people. If you're not able to understand from me, there are a lot of people who will teach good HTML, good React and all. Okay, so please do from that. Okay, so this is like what is HTML. The second question which is generally asked is like what are tags? What are tags actually? So tags are like the HTML elements, so like the h1 and all, so they are like tags. So like h1, so let me write a bit like h1 and all. So h1 is a tag. Oh, this is not auto complete also. H1 is a tag like HTML basics. Okay, this is good. HTML basics. So h1 is a tag, and so most of the tags have starting and ending, and some of them don't have. So this is like that. What are tags? Okay. So next question, if you say what are tags are like h1 and p and all of this. So the interview will ask the next question: Do all tags have an end tag? Do all HTML tags have an end tag? And you have to say no. Some of them don't have, like the image tag is there, like the input tag is there. So though they don't have a end tag, like the input, you can give an example now like that. Most of the time, interview will give you some code to write, because nowadays what happens, one of the round is like interview will give you a small question in some online editor to solve it, and that will come back to that later on. So input like type text. So this doesn't have an ending. This doesn't have an ending. Okay. So like that, this doesn't have an ending. I'll run it and see. This is like it doesn't have an ending. So that is there. And HTML doesn't have much questions. We'll go soon to your CSS. Okay, how many types of heading tags does an HTML contain? So the next question is how many heading tags does an HTML contain? So heading tags, there are 6 heading tags and all. Okay, there are 6 heading tags, and they are h1 and h2, 3, h4. Okay, not in h5, h6, h2, h3, h4, h5, h6. So that is there. Save it and run it. Okay, you run it, so you'll see this, all these things. These are the different things. Okay, now one of the very important questions, which is like the means HTML, they won't ask much question. Much of the questions will be asked in CSS only. So one of the main questions in HTML is a very important question. I think it is the only important question in HTML, because the rest of the questions are very easy and you should know those things. Okay, so here I can do one more thing. I can make it also, because we're not using JavaScript here anymore, so I can make it down. So this is one of the most important question in HTML. What is a semantic HTML? This is something which most people don't know. What is like semantic HTML? They don't know this. What is semantic HTML? Okay, so I'll provide this JSfiddle, so you'll get the questions. I'll provide this JSfiddle. So please, I cannot solve all of your React JS router version 6 questions, and please, I cannot solve the solutions, because we are a very big company, and we don't have means like we don't go on and solve everyone questions. Like React router version 6 is a very complicated thing. We also don't ask people to use React router version 6. It's only 2-3 months old, and it is have a lot of issues. React router version 6. Okay, so that is there. Okay. So that is there, and yeah, h1 is the biggest tag. That is good. Yeah. Okay, so that is good, Ankush. So this is the semantic HTML. Semantic HTML is something which most people don't know, because but when I was taking interview, this was my last question. If even if I generally only used to ask what is HTML and directly go to this. What is semantic HTML? Semantic HTML is something which is very important HTML question, which is like something which you should know, because semantic HTML for the past 4-5 years is very popular. So what is semantic HTML actually? Semantic HTML, like what happens in HTML, like this div and span, all of those have no meaning. Div and span have no meaning. So what happens when the HTML right now, the people want the internet to be accessible by everyone, including the people who have difficulty to see things. So here, what is happening? everything you have to give like semantic like it is like header is there, footer is there, header and footer. In the header and footer you have to put the nav. In the header there is something known as a nav also. So the tags which are there are like uh, header is there and the tags. And then I'm not going to do it completely. In the header we have nav we put the all the nav. At the end of the day everything here is a div only, but they're like this so that there's something known as a screen reader. See, I was telling about the people who have difficulty in C. So what they do, they run the website through something known as a screen reader, and the screen reader have very much difficulty when you do the div and all those things. So it doesn't reads your whole website. It's go and reads your HTML tags, those are screen reader. For that, these headers and all these things are required. You see, in some of the countries like Australia and European Union, it is mandatory to have it accessible. So they are very strict on that. If you work for some European country or some Australia, you know that these things are very important there. In all the other countries, is not that much important because it doesn't make sense. I can use div also instead of this. But this is for accessibility. This is for accessibilities and all those things. Header, nav, and all those things I can give, and nav and all. Okay, so that is there. Header, nav, and then there is there in now the main part. So header and footer are there. Footer, you'll put all the footer there. So I'm not going to tell what is there. Put footer and all you have to put. So footer and all you have to put. And there are two more things are there. One is a section. So section in the body means the header and footer are there. There is a section tag is also there, and there is a article tag is also there. Learn about it. What is section? What is article? And there is one more thing which is there in this semantic, which is known as aside. Aside is for the sidebar. So these things are there like nav and header, section, article, aside, and footer. So these are the things which are there. So this will sections and article, they are mainly for the what kind of means articles and all those things are there. Means a bit of like div only, means a lot of sections. If I have three sections, and I have seen people using section more than article. So section like there's not much difference between them. But then also this can also be an interview questions like what is the difference between section and article. But there is not much difference between them. Okay, so you can learn about them. Okay, and so now we'll move to the CSS. We move to the CSS part, because CSS part is something which people will ask more than asking this Java, HTML and all. Okay, so this will end here, and then I will come as JS. I'll open a new JSfiddle, and we are going to learn about CSS. We'll learn about CSS. Okay, let me do it like this. Okay, so one of the very important questions about CSS is that we write a question in HTML also. What is the difference between div block, div inline display block, inline block, and inline? Okay, display block, inline, and inline. So this is a very important interview question. So these properties are that by default everything is display block on the page, but there are some tags which are by default block level element. They are, and some of the tags are inline element. Then also there is a bit difference between inline block and block, that also we'll see. So each what happens with each block level element, it covers the whole width of the page, like div, p, hr, ul, ol, li. A lot of other tags are there, and many more. In fact, 70% of the tags are like block level only. Okay, only 30% of them are inline. So there is something like known as this inline block also, because that is also something we will learn. So let us take it through a small example, like div, and all right, class equal to x, y, 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 and y. Okay, so I have this. I have to run this. Okay, one more thing I have to. Okay, saved it. This is saved. Okay, so why are there? Let us have some style for this. Okay, so div. Okay, so one more thing in CSS we can change by default. Div is a display block. So it is a block level element. But with CSS, what happens, you can change a block level element to inline, inline to block level. That is something which is there. Okay, so I'll come here and div, and I'll do a display of block. Okay, you can give like this, display of block, and maybe I'll do a color of white and font size of 40 pixel. This I'll do. And as I've told, a lot of elements are block level element, but we can change some of the CSS. That is the power of CSS. So okay, this will not show. So I will do dot x. We'll do here only back. The background is like red. Why is that? Okay, so as you can see, I have given the display block, so everything is coming in one after then. I have given some font size and all those things so that it can be looking good. So like this is a display block. By default div is a block level element only, but I can give a display block also. Okay, now I can change the property here. Okay, so this is a display block. Okay, this is maybe I will write like okay, display of second display of block. This is display of block, and now I will write a display of inline block. Display of inline block. So what happens with display of inline block? It is like, let me show you the example. And as I told, most probably try to give it, means if it is a physical interview, they will give you a whiteboard to do this thing, or and if it's an online interview, they will give you some online editor to do this thing, maybe like this only, because all of the interview gives like this. Because what happens at the end, they are going to give you a small problem to solve. Okay, small problem to solve. Okay, like do a API call to something and get the result. So like that, they will give you x1, y1, z1, and x1, y1, and z1. I'll do now. Instead of this div, I will have it as dot x comma dot y z. Dot y1 and comma dot y1 and z1. Okay. Display. This time I'll take inline dash block. Display inline dash block. Let me run it. See, it will come one after the another. Okay, it is like I should add a br also here, breaker, or else it will come like. Okay, so now see, you can see the inline block, they are coming one after the another. Inline block are quite similar to inline element, which you are going to see next. They're quite similar to that, so they will come in one row piling after one another, each other, and the height of the width are the content by default. So whatever is the content, the height and the width are that. Okay, so the inline block is the inline is also something like that, but inline block generally we give it like this. And inline is by default, there is a lot of tags which are inline, like anchor tag, image tag, input, br, select. Okay, but again through CSS we can make anything like block and inline. Okay, so that is there. So let us now do a inline, and there is a another difference which I'm going to tell now means what is the difference between this inline and inline block. Again, a very important interview question, because when interview will ask you this, after that the next question will be what is the difference between inline and inline block. Okay, let's see that also. So this thing will come like this, and then I'm going to do here. See, again I'll have a PR here. How to link both pages. I'm using a code editor, so I don't have to link the pages. Everything is linked here. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so Sheetal, I don't have to link the pages because everything is linked here, because this is known as a code editor. Like we have a JSBin code edit. I use a lot this. So these are online code editors. You don't have to link like HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Everything is linked here. And I will give this link in the description, so you'll get that. Okay, so that is the so display inline I have done, and then in the display inline I will have this thing again. Okay, let's do y2 and set 2 and let's do y2 and okay, again it will come like this. Okay, so you might be saying, okay, there is no difference between display inline block and display inline. There is no difference between that. Okay, and again there is some space between both of them. There seems to be no difference here. Okay, so that is there. So one more thing, like by default the inline block, the inline elements are, see, I'm not taking it here, but it is a bit of maybe you can think it of as a HTML question also, because with CSS we can change this thing. By default there are some tags which are like a block level elements, like this I will also write that thing here. So block level elements, like in the block level elements I'll put it here. Block level elements are these tags. Okay, block level elements by default these tags are there, div, p and all. And with CSS we can change. With display I can change even a div which is by default a block level element. I'm changing it to inline block, I'm changing it to inline. So that is what can happen with a CSS. Okay, so and what are the inline thing which by default takes on inline? They're like anchor tag and all. So these are all the things are there. Okay, maybe this can be your estimate question. Okay, so another thing is that is it means, now let us come to the other question. Is it so I should do it in different, okay, so different JSfiddle, because this was a very big question. Okay, so now the question is it possible to have width and height in display inline and display inline block and display inline? Okay, or what is the difference between what is the inline block exactly? Okay, what is the inline block? Because inline is quite obvious what is. Okay, so a lot of questions can come related to display inline block. Okay, because it's a different thing. You have might have not even, I also generally don't show this that much, because in production code it is hardly used, but interview is not always our production code. See, JavaScript also sometimes they ask about prototypes and all, which is not a production code. Nobody uses prototypes. Okay, so that was something which we covered in the previous week in JavaScript advanced to mastery. And I told at that time also that okay, these questions are there, they are very tough questions, but they are not used in production, but they might be asked in the interviews, especially the interviews for service based company. It is asked a lot. Okay, so even I have given that those interviews in some big product based companies also. So they ask sometimes those things like prototypal inheritance and all those things. Please go through previous weeks recordings and you will find out about them. Okay, maybe we'll cover that in the JavaScript part. Okay, so the next question which I'm going to see is the what is the inline block? Okay, inline block is a combination of display block and display inline, as the name suggests. So it has some of the properties of the block level element. Okay, and main properties is from your inline only. Okay, inline only, the main properties is there. So but the question is, it possible to have a width and height in a display inline block, which where it is possible. Okay, and so what we are going to do, maybe we are going to copy this thing. Maybe I'll remove this I'll copy, and so, and the CSS also I'll copy. Not using X, better to remove it. Okay. So run it, and we'll get it like this. So by default you'll see there is no differences there. Okay, but there is a difference in display inline blocks. Display inline block, what happens, it can have a width and height. The thing is that it can have a width and height. So this is actually two answers. It can have a width and height. How it can have, let us try it. Okay, I will give a width, and this is very important interview question. Okay, width as 100 pixel and height as 100 pixel. I'll give this thing, and here also I'll give it. Okay, at both places I given it, and x2, y2, x2 and z2 are what, they are your display inline. So again, let me save it, and I will run it. See, it is not having any effect. So this is the difference between inline block and inline. Inline block can have width and the height, but if in inline you give a width and height, it will have no effect. There is no effect, nil effect. But here you can give. So that's why inline block has some of the features of a block level element also, display block also. It has got some of the feature. Okay, so that is like that. Okay, so okay, so again another question, is it possible to have padding and margin in display block and display inline? Okay, so let us see that. Okay, so what is the question? The question is like, is it possible to have padding and margin in display inline block and display inline? And the answer is, it is possible to have padding and margin in both. So sometimes you might be confused. This can be the next question. You might be confused. Okay, is it possible? And the answer is yes, it is possible in both of them. Okay, so let us again understand this, like inline block. Okay, maybe the width and the height I have given. Okay, so width and height was having no issues and all. So maybe I'll give here. Okay, I should here on it, padding as 20 pixel and margin as padding as 20 pixel and margin as 30 pixel. Okay, so both of these things I have given, padding as 20 pixel and margin as 30 pixel. And let me see that, run it and see. The padding and the margin both are in effect here. So maybe this is like in one. Okay, I'll have a padding as 10 and margin as 10 because it will become way too big. And see, here also the padding and the margin are being given. Width and the height is not possible here, but padding and the margin are quite possible here. Okay, in both of them it is possible. So again, I'll save it and run it. So see, so even the padding and the margin, it is moving. Maybe I'll have the margin as 20, so that it's a bit okay. So this is possible. This is possible in both of the thing. Okay, so this is again a very important interview question. So then the next thing is that how to. This is a tricky question. This a lot of people will not know. JSfiddle. I'll again open a JSfiddle like this, and in this JSfiddle, I'll have like the next question is like how to eliminate default gap in display inline block and display inline. How to eliminate the default gap there. Okay, so this is a very important interview question. So as we know, there is a gap in both of them. Okay, so let us now, let me do one thing again. Let me have both of them. Okay, but let's add one and this. And this one I have. Let us have a basic one first. Okay, we'll run it, and it will anyways show like this. Okay, and the question was, can we eliminate default gap? Default gap is this. See, this thing is the known as a default gap. Some padding and all these things are there, so the default gap is there. Okay, instead of this, I'll have a HR here, and maybe HR here. So how to eliminate this thing, like by default everything have means a bit of margin it has got. Okay, margin is got. So this gap is there, but that is because of the margin. So how to eliminate this thing? Okay, so it is a bit difficult to eliminate this thing. Okay, and there are some tricks are there. So that's why I was telling you it's a very tricky question. Okay, so most of the people I think won't be able to make it. Okay, so again, there is a very good article about it. Okay, there is a very good, yeah, Ankit, thanks for that. Please do subscribe. If you're not yet subscribed, please do subscribe and like, please do that. Okay, so that is there. And so that is there. And how to eliminate this? Okay, how to eliminate this? Let us find out that. Okay, so they have given a lot of things like how to eliminate the gap and remove the space like this. See, the weird kind of tricks are there. This is one of the way to eliminate it. Let us use this way to eliminate this thing, and that way is like okay, that is not this way. I think okay, this way I'm going to use. With comments also you can eliminate. This is a weird kind of thing, but yeah, we can eliminate with this. And I will do this like maybe I will have one with normal like this, so that you will know that we can eliminate it with this. Okay, maybe I'll write, okay, that I'll write later on. So how to eliminate with this? Get this, I have to do a not like this, and it will by default, if I do this, it will make it whole. So this is a weird kind of a thing, but weird kind of things are always there. Like this. See, the margins are eliminated. This is totally weird kind of thing, I know, but this is a very tricky question. And see, this is the only way to eliminate these margins, or else it will not be eliminated. Okay, so maybe I'll write here issue fixed. But if you tell this to the interviewer, he will be very, very happy. Okay, so that is there. So this is there. Now a very popular CSS question without with any CSS interview is incomplete, and that is a very easy one actually. Okay, that everybody knows, and that is like, what is the CSS box model? Without this, no means when we do our CSS crash course also, we always say that okay, CSS box model is one of the most interview questions. See, this was a very tricky question. This even the interviewers know that 90% or 99% of people won't be able to tell this thing, but this is something which they expect. Okay, this and this and this all things they expect. Okay, but one thing which they definitely expect, without which you will fail the interview, it is like, what is the CSS box model? Okay, not here. what is a CSS box model? Okay, that is something which you always have to tell. Okay, so CSS box model is a box that wraps around every element HTML, which contains content, padding, border, and margin. And it's always better to show it through an example. Like I will have a div here, and then I will have a in this div, I will have a div. I give this div uh, height of 100 pixel, width of 100 pixel, padding of 10 pixel, and border of 20 pixel solid red, and margin of 30 pixel, and maybe background of blue, like this. I'll have, so it will show like this. Okay, so height, width, padding, border, margin. So the box model consists of four things, which is the content of content here means the width or the height, or content is another thing also. If you don't give the width and the height, okay, so if you give the real content, like maybe is lorem is allowed here, maybe I will do a lorem. Okay, lorem is there, and then we will remove this. Okay, because this is much better to show it like this, because content is not width and height, or content can be width and height also, but content can be the real content also. See, the content here is this, content here is this lorem ipsum text. Okay, that is there. And what is this padding? Padding is like everything which is like wrapping. So if I will have a bit more padding, so padding is actually which wrap the content is known as a padding. Okay, it's known as a padding, and this color should be actually it should be yellow, because I'm not able to read the text. Okay, so this is there like this. And margin is what? So border, you can see border is this 20 pixels solid red all the way around. Margin is like between two different elements, it is the margin. See, if it is like 30 pixel from here, and that is there. So there are four things in the box model. It is very important to say to the interviewer. One is this box model consists of content first, after the padding is there, after the border is there, after the margin is there. You can also show them, like if I right click and inspect on anything like this, and there will always be like this. Where is it? Where is the box model here? Okay, they've computed and all. Okay, okay, yeah, and here is a box model. In every browser I'm using Firefox developer edition, but it will be there. So if you see there, here also this the box model is there. It will show like what is the content. If you hover your mouse over it, it will tell it over the content. Okay, it will take over the content and all. And after this the padding is there. After this padding, it is giving me the 20 pixel all the way around. And then after that, border is also 20 pixel all the way around. And then this is the margin. So this is the margin is like 30 pixel all the way around. So this is the box model. Every browser shows the box model. So that is there. This is the most important question in CSS. Okay, so that is there. Then okay, okay, another important question is okay, what is the difference between box sizing content box and box sizing border box? Again, a very important question. This is there, and again we teach this in a CSS course also. What is the difference between them? And the difference between them is that by default everything is box sizing content box. It means that the content is separate from the border and the padding. Content is separate from the border and the padding. And border box means the border includes the content, and the border in box width. Okay, not the box widths include the border and the padding. Okay, Okay, so let us do again in this. So by default this is like the this is like the content box. By default it is content box. So you can also give like this box sizing and as content box is there, box sizing content box. Okay, okay, that is there, box sizing content box, and it will not have anything. So the content, whatever the content is there, it is separate from the padding 10 pixel and all on both sides. So now we will see this, make this as, see even if I will inspect it, and maybe I'll do a up to the left. Okay, so it is like this. Okay, so this content is there. After that your this padding is there and border is there. So padding and the border are there, they are not a part of this thing. Padding and the border are top of it, they're not a part of the content. Okay, so now what we are going to do, just you'll see if I going to change it to, by default content box is there, even if you don't give it, the content box will be there. And content box means that a padding and the border are different than the content, and I'll do it as a border box. It's the border box. See, it actually it shrinked. It actually shrinked. It actually took it according. I should make it at a bottom. Actually, it shrinked. Now, if you come here, run it, save it, and run it. That is my dev. Okay. It is much better to see this example in a different thing. Okay, wait a sec. What I'm going to do, I'm going to make another div with the class box sizing and box model. This one doesn't have anything like this because it is not showing correctly, because I have to show it with, so I will remove it anyway. Border box on here, it's not showing anything. Height of 100 pixel and width of 100 pixel. Okay. So height of 100 pixel and width of 100 pixel. First I will have this as nothing, like this I'll have. So if I run it, see, now the width and the height are there. Let me come here and inspect, and so I'll inspect this one. So this box sizing, and this, if I now go down this, okay, this width and the height are 100 pixel 100 pixel. After that there is a padding of 20 pixel, and after that the border is there. So after that this padding of 20 pixel is there, after that the border is there. Okay, so that is there. So if I change it to like this, box sizing border box, now you'll see the difference. Now it has become a bit smaller. It has become a bit smaller. So why it has become a bit smaller? To inspect and see, here I am do. So here this is now 20 into 20. This is now like the width and the height are like 20 into 20, and this whole thing is like this padding, and then after this border is there. Okay, so this padding and the border are contained within the width and the height. So that is like a border box. So padding and this border, so it has become a bit smaller the moment I give this border box. So that is the border box. Okay, and then let's go ahead. One tricky question is that can we have, okay, I will have this thing there only because I'm not going to write many things in there. Can we have negative padding and negative margin in CSS? Okay, can we have them negative padding and negative margin in CSS? So negative padding, so the answer to this is that padding, what is padding? Padding is like whatever the content is there, it will push the content to make space around the content. Okay, when if I make the padding as 0, so it will be like it will not have anything like this. Margin pushes the content away from the existing boxes. If some other box is also there, so margin will put it away. Okay, so by default, by having a margin as negative, we can have a lot of interesting CSS display cases, but negative padding actually doesn't makes any sense and it is not allowed. So the answer is that we can have, okay, let me write the answer also. we can have we can have negative margin but no negative padding. This is the answer. We can have negative margin but no negative padding. So this is the answer. So that is done. Now still a lot of CSS questions are remaining, so let us do something more like what is a specificity in CSS. This is quite difficult to tell what is the specificity in CSS. So specificity, let me write that thing. What is like a specificity in CSS? Okay, so what is that? So if you have two HTML elements that have conflicting styles, then the browser decides which one to apply on based on the specificities. You see, specificity, whatever it is. The specificity is nothing but a set of rules for the browser. Okay, so let us look on them. Okay, so from the starting like this, I will have a div. I'll have a div like window. So in the CSS, if I have a div like back round as green, and similarly I have a div of background as red, which one will be taken? So the last one will taken. Last one will take. So browser decided the okay. So the same thing. So the last one will be taken. Last one will be taken. So now what will happen? Okay. So if there is a class root, what will happen if there is a class root? So the next thing is like I have a class equal to name. I have a class equal to name. So what will happen here? So I will have a div dot name here. Div dot name I have taken. Now what will happen? Now the specificity of the class become higher than the normal div, so that one will be taken. Okay, so the class name will be taken, so because its specificity have become more. So what will happen if I have an id? So I will have an id equal to name id. I'll have this thing id equal to name id. So ids we take by the hash, and now what will happen? Now again it will be given to the id, because id have a specificity more than classes. One of the reasons we don't take id much in the CSS, we take id for JavaScript. not a hard written rule, but you'll see most of the time we take the ID for the JavaScript, like document.get element by ID and all those things we do. But in CSS we mainly take these classes and all. Okay, so that is there. So that is one thing is there. Okay, so but what is the highest specificity of an element? Okay, so highest specificity, see, as I've told, ID and classes, but uh, there is one more specificity which is actually, you'll get to hear this in a lot of projects, that you should not do this, but I have always find developers doing this thing when everything fails, because in big projects CSS fails a lot. You will not even get to know where this color is coming, because in one project like 10 people works, so how can you know from where it is coming? So I've seen a lot of developers using this thing, which although it was not allowed, then also you'll see background yellow, and I'll do a hash important. If I do a hash important, it overrides almost everything. Almost everything it overrides. This is the highest specificity. So it will not even these classes and IDs and names. Anything doesn't matter. It is like this, and that's why it is prohibited. But again, if something is prohibited, that the other person is going to do the most. Because in big projects, always the team leads and the architects say that you should not use this thing. This thing is a bad thing, bad practice. But then also people will do this because it has got the highest specificity. You don't even have to use a brain, and if you're seeing that okay, your CSS is breaking, you just do this thing, it will be, but then someone else's CSS will break, so that thing happens. But this one is having the highest specificity. Okay, so that is like that. So now the next question is like, how to centrally align a block element inside another element in plain CSS. See, I'm not asking for flexbox or something. You can do it with flexbox and grid in a very easy way. But sometimes the interviewer will ask how to do it in plain CSS without flexbox, or maybe they can specify also without flexbox and CSS. And there are some tricky ways to do that thing. Because what used to happen earlier, it was very difficult to centrally align something. Okay, so that is there. So I'll have a div of and class equal to out, and div of class equal to in, and have like this. And then in the CSS I'll go and do a dot out like this, and width of 300 pixel, height of 300 pixel, and background of yellow, and dot in, take this thing, width of 100 pixel and blue. If I run it, it will be shown like this. So this outer one have a width of 300 pixels and it is starting from the 100. So what I want to do, I want to move it to the center. So moving to the center, we can make the main out as a, so there are some other tricks also to do. There's a lot of tricks are there. So I'll make it as a position relative. So now I can move the inner one. If I make a position relative, I can move it in comparison. And we teach position relative also in a CSS class. CSS crash course. Please, you can check that out. Then I'll do a position as absolute. Position as absolute I'm going to do. And if I do this, nothing will happen anyways. I have to move it. So that is whenever we do a position absolute, we get access to top, right, bottom, left. So I'll do a top of 50%. I'll do like this, top of 50%. Save it and run it. So it has moved to the just top of the 50%. It has moved. So now I'm going to do a left of 50%. Okay. So if I run it, so it is moved here, but it is not the exact center. So how to move it to the exact center? And here we do a different bit of trick, like it is not an exact center. we have to use the transform property here. So because it is taking from here, so we'll use the transform as. So again, the transform is animation property, but use a lot in a lot of places. Translate as minus 50%, comma minus 50%. I'm going to do, and if I do this, it will be the exact center. So this is how we move it to the exact center. Okay, so that is there, and now. Okay. So the interviewer can also ask, let us see this as the last question, maybe. Yes, fiddle. Okay, like this. Put central element, block element inside using flexbox and Css grid. Actually, this is very easy to do. We don't have to use anything like this. Maybe I'm going to use the same thing here. Like I'm going to use the same thing, and here I'm going to use this and this same thing. I'll remove all these things actually. I don't want this thing. I don't want to do this thing. Only what happens with flexbox and grid on the parent element, you can do a display of flex and justify content as center, and we have a Css flexbox and grid course also. Please see that also. And these two questions are also very important in Css. How to centrally align everything. It's a very important question. Center is there like this, and see, I run it, and it has moved to the exact center. Exact center it is moved. So this is how we do it with flexbox. And grid is also like grid have also this justify content and align item things. So instead of flexbox, actually I will do one thing. I'll comment it out. Why to write it again? And I'll do a display of grid. So grid also have the same properties. So instead of the flexbox, I just have to give the grid. It doesn't matter, and it will be the same. So this is how this is done. Okay. So okay. We have some more CSS questions which we are going to do tomorrow, and we need to do like okay. So that is there. So we are going to complete here today, and we are going to meet again tomorrow to do. First, we will start with CSS, and then if we have time, we'll CSS. A lot of other questions are also remaining. Then we'll start with JavaScript and all, and then JavaScript has a lot of questions actually. A lot of tricky questions are also there in JavaScript. Then we'll go to React and all. So that is there. And React, one thing I want to tell React, mainly the interviewer, there is not much many things to ask in React. The interviewer gives you a, when they'll reach to React, they'll give a small question, small something to prepare. Sometimes it's a take home, sometimes it's that in front of them they you have to do it. Mostly I used to give interviews in the React, you have to code in front of me in something known as a stack blitz. Okay, that is there. So I used to give them like that. Okay, so that was something which I used to give. Okay, and with this we'll end here, and we'll meet tomorrow for more questions starting